Today, we are taking a gander at the life and career of Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. We will be referring to him as Fluffy, as that is how many fans recognize him. Fluffy was born on October 18, 1993. He was born and raised in Dunnigan, California, where he would go on to graduate from Woodland High School in 2011. He started training in high school, but a young Fluffy was tunnel visioned when it came to sports, so much so that he would get booted off the team due to his very lackluster grades. Despite the poor grades, he would go to college, but would soon drop out so that he could pursue his career in MMA. So without further ado, let's get right into his career. Like and subscribe. Fluffy had quite the long amateur career before going pro. He had a total of 10 fights, going 9-1. So it goes without saying that Fluffy was a highly touted fighter, and he would make his professional debut on September 13th, 2014. He would face off with Trey Williams. Fluffy would walk into this fight nervous but ready, and in no time at all, Fluffy would absolutely demolish Williams, knocking him out just 51 seconds into the first round. After winning his debut with a quick knockout, Fluffy would take on his next fight in March of 2015. His opponent would be Kenny Ento. This would turn out to be yet another quick finish, not by knockout, but by guillotine, just 3 minutes into the first round. Fluffy was on a roll and would not stop anytime soon, so to keep his momentum, he would take on another fight in August of that same year. His opponent would be Preston Snook. Fluffy would keep his first round finishing streak going by sinking in yet another guillotine choke and win the fight in just 90 seconds. Fluffy would take his time to fight again, wanting to further improve his skills. He would take his fourth fight in August of 2016 against Jamoke Hunter. Fluffy would once again get another first round finish with another guillotine choke. Fluffy was beginning to look like he was UFC bound, but he still needed to get more wins behind him. So he would take on his next opponent, Mike Persons, in March of 2017. This would be one of his best finishes to date because in just 3 minutes, he had sunk in a nasty standing guillotine choke and got the submission win. After getting one of the coolest submissions to watch in a cage fight, he would sign to LFA and fight another future top-level UFC fighter, All In Brandon Allen. And this would be for the LFA middleweight belt, as well as his first 5-round fight. Unsurprisingly, this would be his hardest fight at the time, and it would be a back and forth war, with Fluffy winning the majority of the exchanges. He would go on to beat Allen by unanimous decision. This would catch the attention of the biggest promotion in the world, the UFC, but they would want him to prove himself on the very popular show Dana White's Contender Series. His opponent would be Jordan Wright. This would be his fastest finish to date because in just 40 seconds, he would get Jordan on the ground and he would batter him into submission, winning by TKO. But Fluffy had done something illegal before the fight. He smoked the devil's lettuce, the green gas, the loud chronic dank ganja, if you will, otherwise known as weed. And this fight would get overturned to a no contest. Fans were outraged at this, not because Fluffy had done something bad, like take steroids or messed with the scale before the fight, but because the chronic is legal in the majority of states, Nevada included. So the UFC would sign him regardless of the controversy. He would make his UFC debut on February 2nd, 2019. His opponent would be Marcus Perez, and he would be on the wrong end of a high-level submission because in the first 60 seconds into the second round, Fluffy would get stuck in an anaconda choke, making this his first loss in his career. This was rough for Fluffy, but he was still extremely confident and wanted to prove to the world that he was one of the top fighters in the UFC. So he would take on his next opponent just a few months later, in August. He would face off with the Iron Turtle, Jun Young Park. This was a close fight up until the end of the second round because Fluffy would sink in the submission that made him lose his last fight, the anaconda choke. After getting his first win in the UFC, he would be scheduled to fight another up-and-coming prospect, the Trailblazer, Kevin Holland. This would be a very rough night in the office for Fluffy because in just 39 seconds, he would get kneed in the breadbasket and fall to the ground, and Holland would rain brutal ground and pound until the ref stepped in, giving Fluffy his second loss and his first loss by TKO. Fluffy was gutted. Not only had he lost, but his UFC record was very lackluster, with it being a rough 1 win and 2 losses. So he would take the rest of the year off and fight again in February of 2021 against Rodolfo Vieira. This would turn out to be a great performance for Fluffy, because in the second round he would sink in a nasty arm-in guillotine choke and get the tap. This would be such a good submission that he would be awarded a $50,000 performance bonus. After the impressive win, he would start to have very bad luck with his opponents. He would get his next fight with Puna Soriano cancelled due to Fluffy hurting his hand, so he would sign up to fight Dustin Stoltzfus, but this would get cancelled due to Fluffy hurting his knee. So he would sign up to fight Albert Duraev, but Duraev injured his ribs. So he would sign up to fight future champion Dricus du Plessis, but this fight would get cancelled due to Dricus getting rebooked to fight Kelvin Gastelum. After getting 4 fights in a row cancelled for one reason or another, he would get his next fight in April of 2022 against Josh Fremd. This would be a harder fight than expected, but it was still a great showing from Fluffy because he would win by unanimous decision. Not wanting to slow down, he signed to fight Marc-Andre Barillon in September of 2022. This would be yet another fantastic showing from the budding prospect, because in the third round he would sink in the arm triangle choke. Fluffy was slowly becoming a fan favorite amongst the hardcore fan base. With the UFC realizing the potential of Fluffy, they would have him fight another prospect, Edmund Shabazian, in May of 2023. This would turn into a great fight that would yet again showcase how good Fluffy really was, because in the third round, Fluffy would get Edmund down and reign in brutal ground and pound until the ref stepped in and stopped the fight. Fluffy had finally gotten a pretty big name on his resume, but he would have another rough stint of cancelled fights, because his fight with Chris Curtis would get cancelled, his fight with Roman Kopylov would get cancelled as well, and his fight with Ikram Aliskerov would get axed as well. But Roman Kopylov would step in for Ikram and fight Fluffy in February of this year. Fluffy would square off with Kopylov. This would be a very interesting fight because Kopylov is a kickboxer with good wrestling defense, and Fluffy is obviously a good wrestler with very good jiu-jitsu. And this time, the wrestler would get the job done, because in the second round, Fluffy would sink in a rear naked choke and get the submission win, derailing the hype train of Kopylov, as well as getting the label of the dark horse of the division. And that brings us to this weekend. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is set to face off with another fan favorite in Michel Pereira. This is a very exciting fight because Pereira is a very flashy striker that has some good grappling, but he also has knockout power. And Fluffy is a very good grappler that can strike good enough to hang with the top level guys. Before I make my prediction, we will go over Anthony Fluffy Hernandez's stats. He stands at 6 feet tall, his record is 12-2, and he is currently on a 5-fight win streak. He has 2 knockout wins, 1 in the first round and 1 in the third round. He has 8 submission wins, with 4 submissions in the first round and 3 subs in the second round and 1 in the third. And his other 2 wins would be by decision. His 2 losses have been 1 by TKO and 1 by submission. I think Anthony has what it takes to get the win, but Michel is unpredictable and has a good chance at catching Fluffy with a crazy shot. But if Anthony is defensively aware and plays it safe, he has a great shot at getting a submission in either the second or the third round, which is why I'm picking him to win. But I wouldn't be surprised if the odds are even going into this fight. Comment below who you have winning this fight and how it will end. If you watched the video this far, be sure to like and subscribe, as it is the only way to support the channel. I hope you guys have a great week and enjoy the fights this weekend. Bye.